movie opens with a monologue from a vampire, who narrates the long history between the Lycans and vampires. For 20 years, a brutal war has raged between them. Victor, a powerful vampire leader, has assembled an army to wipe out the Lycans. Those infected by the Lycans turn into werewolves, losing their humanity and acting like savage beasts. One day, Victor hears the cries of a child in a prison cell. He investigates and finds a human baby, born from a Lycan, who he later names Lucian. Though Victor considers killing the child, he cannot bring himself to do it. As Lucian grows, he becomes stronger and more determined than others of his kind. Victor tests Lucian's strength by forcing him to fight vampires. Impressed, Victor decides to create more Lycans like Lucian, ones who retain their human form. By starving Lucian and making him feed on human slaves, Victor succeeds in creating a new breed of Lycans. These Lycans become a slave race, forced to serve the vampires. Although the vampires believe they have full control over the Lycans, their dominance might not last. In the present, a lone rider speeds through the woods at night, chased by giant werewolves. At the castle, Victor is in deep discussion with his advisors, Koloman and Orsova, about politics and finances. The wolves have been attacking human slaves, but Victor seems unconcerned. However, since these slaves are the vampires' main source of food and income, the issue cannot be ignored. Meanwhile, the rider in the woods is battling the wolves. As the situation becomes more desperate, the rider nears the castle, where other vampires are ready with crossbows. They unleash a barrage of bolts, taking down the wolves. Lucian, still serving the vampires, saves the rider by shooting a wolf in midair. The rider removes their helmet, revealing Sonia, Victor's daughter. Despite Lucian saving her life, Sonia dismisses him coldly. Victor, however, acknowledges Lucian's actions and asks if he has any issues killing his own kind. Lucian responds that the wolves are merely animals, not his kin. Victor reminds Lucian of his lowly status as a servant, instructing him to keep his eyes down. Inside the castle, Sonia and Victor argue. Victor wants Sonia to stay within the castle's safety, leaving the dangerous tasks to the death dealers, but Sonia, a skilled fighter, refuses to be sidelined. Victor, who is grooming her for a position of power on the council, worries about her rebellious nature and the risks she takes. Outside, Lucian burns the wolf's body that he killed while protecting Sonia. As the flames consume the corpse, it shifts back into a human form. The other Lycans, beaten and forced to work for the vampires, are suffering. When one vampire guard becomes too harsh with a whip, Lucian intervenes, causing tension. Despite this, Lucian is respected by the other Lycans due to his favored position with Victor. In the council chambers, Victor discusses the wolf attacks with Koloman and Orsova. Koloman points out that the wolves are killing too many humans, which weakens the vampires by depleting their food source. To address the problem, Koloman suggests allowing Lycans to patrol during the day. Victor resists, fearing it would grant the Lycans too much freedom. Koloman then proposes creating a privileged class of Lycans, led by Lucian, to control the others and manage the wolves. Although Victor is hesitant, without Sonia's support, he reluctantly considers the idea. With the human nobles arriving the next day, Victor must make a decision soon. After the workday ends, the Lycans are herded back into their cages. Lucian sneaks away through the sewers and climbs to an old sentry post where he meets Sonia. It's revealed that they are secret lovers, with Sonia only acting cruelly toward Lucian in public to avoid suspicion. They share a passionate moment, and Lucian asks Sonia if she would escape with him. Sonia doubts they could evade Victor's wrath, but Lucian shows her a key he made to unlock the collar around his neck. This collar, worn by all Lycans in servitude, has spikes that prevent them from transforming. If they do, they are impaled. Lucian believes that if he can remove the collar, he can fight the vampires and escape. Sonia, fearing for his safety, urges caution, but Lucian dreams of a future where Lycans and vampires are equals, as they both share the bloodline of Corvinus. Unbeknownst to them, Tanis, one of Victor's lieutenants, witnesses their meeting and realizes they are lovers. He decides not to inform Victor. The next day, the human nobles arrive, and Sonia is assigned to escort them. Lucian, worried for her safety, tries to dissuade her, but Sonia ignores his concerns. As she leaves, Tanis subtly lets Lucian know he is aware of their secret. During the escort, Sonia and her guards hear wolves howling in the distance. Lucian, recognizing the danger, warns them, but no one listens. He rushes out to save Sonia, disobeying orders and knocking out guards in his path. As the wolves attack from all sides, Sonia's forces struggle to hold them off. One human slave, Raz, bravely fights a wolf and survives. Sonia is injured, but Lucian arrives just in time to defend her. He uses his key to unlock his collar and transforms into a powerful Lycan. His thunderous roar drives the wolves away, impressing Reyes, who witnesses the event. When Victor and his men arrive, Lucian changes back into human form. Despite saving Sonia's life, Lucian is punished for breaking the rules. He is beaten and arrested, and Sonia's pleas to her father fall on deaf ears. Back at the castle, Victor feels betrayed and orders Lucian to be lashed with a whip tipped with sharp hooks, tearing into his back. Sonia hears Lucian's screams and is heartbroken. After the punishment, Lucian is thrown back into his cage, next to the human slaves. Reyes, now in the cage beside Lucian, offers him water. Victor, suspicious of Sonia's defense of Lucian, questions her. Sonia claims she was merely grateful for Lucian's help. Lucian and Reyes talk, and Reyes notes how the wolves seemed to obey Lucian when he transformed. Lucian begins to speak of escape and freedom, and the human slaves, though fearful, start to listen with interest. At that moment, Sonia appears, and Lucian tells her he must leave. They realize that they can only rely on each other, though they might be able to trust Tanis since he knows their secret but hasn't exposed them. Lucian suggests that Sonia speak with Tanis to find out what he wants in return for his silence. Meanwhile, Victor meets with the nobles, who are expected to pay tribute for protection against the wolves. This year's tribute is smaller than expected, and Victor demands more due to the increasing wolf attacks. One of the nobles, frustrated and angry, accuses Victor of losing control and being unable to protect even his own lands. In a show of power, Victor kills the nobleman to maintain control through fear. In the dungeons, the vampires are entertained by the Lycans fighting each other over the meager food they're given. Lucian, disgusted by this cruelty, decides he can't stand it any longer and begins to rally the Lycans for rebellion. In Sonia's room, she recalls a memory of Victor giving her a medallion. Determined, she confronts Tanis, holding a dagger to his throat, and demands to know why he didn't reveal her secret to Victor. Tanis admits that Victor doesn't handle bad news well, and he's waiting for the right moment to use this information to his advantage. Tanis wants a seat on the council, but with only 12 positions and vampires being immortal, he has little chance unless someone gives up their place. Sonia agrees to give Tanis her seat in exchange for his help. Sonia then informs Lucian that Victor plans to execute him the following evening and urges him to leave at dawn if he wants to survive. They agreed to meet in the forest for 3 days. As Tanis passes by, he discreetly tosses a key to Lucian, the key to his collar. The human slaves are brought out and forcibly turned into Lycans by a transformed Lycan, making them slaves and guards for the vampires. Lucian speaks to the newly transformed Lycans, including Reyes, and convinces them to join him in escaping and revolting. When the guard who had whipped Lucian earlier arrives to check on the slaves, Lucian removes his collar, transforms, and kills him. The slaves break free, overpower their guards, and make a run for it. The guards quickly notice and begin shooting at the Lycans with crossbows. Many Lycans are killed or separated by a barrage of arrows. Lucian is forced to flee with the few slaves who escaped, but vows to return for the others. As he charges outside, he encounters 2 vampires, throwing them and himself out of a window. The vampires turn to dust as they fall in the sunlight, and Lucian lands safely on the ground. A few other Lycans follow him, and they all escape. Victor, enraged, realizes the collars are unlocked. He had given Tanis the key that Lucian had made, and suspected Tanis of betrayal. However, Tanis claims he had locked the key in the armory. Outside, Lucian and the 4 other Lycans reach the surrounding forests, but instead of fleeing, Lucian plans to return to the castle to rescue his fellow Lycans. In the castle armory, Tanis finds the key he had locked away, convincing Victor that Lucian must have made another one, and Tanis escapes punishment. Back with Lucian and the Lycans, they have freed the nobleman's human slaves. Lucian offers them a choice: join him and gain immortality by becoming Lycans. The freed slaves agree. Lucian sends Reyes to other estates to recruit more soldiers. At the castle, Victor, still restless, steps over a loose metal grate, the same one Lucian used to sneak out and meet with Sonia. He follows the passageway to their secret meeting place. Meanwhile, Lucian heads into the woods and encounters the wolves. Strangely, they do not attack him. Victor confronts Sonia in her room, questioning her about Lucian's escape. He doesn't believe her denials and drinks her blood to see her memories. Realizing that his daughter has betrayed him, Victor is overwhelmed with rage. He imprisons Sonia in her chambers and storms out. At the Lycan camp, Lucian waits anxiously for Sonia. The others urge him to move on, fearing that waiting any longer will lead to their discovery. Back at the castle, the council learns that Lucian is rallying the slaves and creating more Lycans. They pressure Victor to act against Lucian. Victor, knowing Lucian will return for Sonia, prepares for the inevitable attack. He sends one of Sonia's friends to inform Lucian that she will soon be executed. Lucian, understanding it's a trap, decides to return to the castle alone, leaving Reyes in command of the troops. During the night, Lucian sneaks into the castle, silently taking down guards. He reaches Sonia, and they try to escape together. They run through the sewers but encounter heavy resistance. Above, Victor and his men pour oil into the tunnels and set them on fire. Lucian and Sonia barely escape through a small hole in the ceiling and find themselves battling vampires. Lucian is outnumbered and struggling, while Sonia fights fiercely, knowing they want her alive. Victor arrives and fights Sonia, forcing her to defend herself against her father. Sonia pleads with Victor to spare Lucian for the sake of her unborn child. But Victor, seeing the child as an abomination, subdues her. Despite her regrets, Sonia tells Lucian that the choices she made were hers alone. Sonia and Lucian are dragged out for trial. Lucian is shot with silver arrows to prevent him from transforming. Sonia is found guilty of treason, and even Victor, though it pains him, declares her guilty. Lucian begs Victor to spare her, but it's futile. Sonia and Lucian are brought to a chamber where she is tied up and forced to watch as Lucian is whipped brutally. The whipping ends, and the vampires leave, knowing dawn will soon come, and Sonia will be executed by sunlight. Lucian, still chained, desperately tries to break free. Sonia says a final goodbye as the sunlight burns her to ashes. Victor, grief-stricken, watches in silence. At sunset, Lucian remains chained in the execution chamber. Victor enters, mourning his daughter, unaware that the full moon is rising. Fueled by rage, Lucian gains the strength to force the arrowheads from his back and transforms. He breaks free, grabs Sonia's medallion, and attempts to escape. Despite being severely injured by arrows, he lets out a powerful roar, summoning his men before collapsing and reverting to human form. Victor, ready to kill Lucian, is interrupted by the sound of approaching Lycans and wolves. The vampires prepare to defend the castle, but the sheer number of enemies overwhelms them. The wolves scale the walls with ease, and the vampires are quickly overrun. Reyes finds Lucian and helps him, freeing the other Lycan prisoners, who remove their collars and transform, fighting their way out. Victor orders Tanis to retrieve the other elders from their hibernation, and prepares to face the Lycans himself. Despite his power, Victor is eventually confronted by Lucian, and they engage in a fierce battle, falling into a pit and hanging from chains. Lucian weakens Victor with sunlight, ties him up, and believing he has won, impales Victor with a sword. He tosses Victor's chained body into the water, thinking the fight is over. Outside, Reyes declares the battle finished, but Lucian knows this is just the beginning of a new war between the Lycans and vampires. On a ship off the coast, Tanis recovers Victor's body and places him in a coffin to sleep and recover, while the next elder takes control. The film ends with a mysterious woman named Craven, revealing that Victor killed her family but kept her alive because she resembled Sonia, hinting that the second vampire-Lycan war is on the horizon.